Welcome to Conversations Different, a podcast from the Santa Fe New Mexican about interesting people, places, and issues of northern New Mexico. This is Inez Russell Gomez, and today we are going to talk about that ever exciting topic, energy. And with us to let some light on it is Missi Currier, who is CEO and president of New Mexico Oil and Gas Association, or as everyone knows it, NMOGA. Welcome, Missi.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here with you.
I wanted to start out with just some basics, like what is NMOGA and what does it do?
Sure. So, the New Mexico Oil and Gas Association, we're actually celebrating our 98th birthday this year. We are the largest and oldest oil and gas association in the state. We have other partners that we work with, like the Permian Basin Petroleum Association and the Independent Petroleum Association of New Mexico. But we've been around for 98 years. Something that not a lot of people know is that oil and gas has actually been drilled in New Mexico for over a century. And because it's been drilled for so long, that's why our association has been here this long. What we do is a combination of several different things. We represent the largest of the large producers, many names that you might know at home, like a Chevron or an Exxon, to smaller mom and pop producers that have been here for generations and have multitude of families that are still working in New Mexico because of those companies. We represent all streams of oil and gas, and what that means is upstream, midstream, and downstream. And granted, this is a pretty, this is not a technical answer, but upstream is how they pull it out of the ground, midstream is how they move it, and downstream is when it goes into your car or is refined into your makeup or your cell phone, other things like that that you use on a daily basis. And what our job is at the association is to help our members do legislative work, regulatory work, and education. Education meaning internally to our membership, and externally where I get to come and talk to you and others to help people understand how oil and gas is a part of their everyday life.
That's right. We wouldn't have trash bags without it.
Exactly. Or the microphone that you're talking on and all sorts of things.
No, I read a really kind of scary article that said the downstream effects from the Iran war have not been felt yet, really. So start stocking up on things made with petroleum, because in addition to food going up when there's not fertilizer, you're going to be paying a lot more for some things in a few months.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that is both really scary about oil and gas being a global commodity, but also something that we're very hopeful that New Mexicans are very proud of. We are the number 2 oil producer in the country and number 3 in rising in natural gas. So we have a lot of resources that are right here at home. And it's actually not New Mexico or the oil and gas companies that set the price at the pump or your airline ticket or your food at the grocery store, because it is a global commodity. That's why the price fluctuates so much.
Right.
But we are fortunate that we have so many resources here at home to allow for an all of the above energy approach with wind, solar, and many other options that allows us to be an energy powerhouse and help as much as we can to keep prices affordable and sustainable.
Yeah, because it affects every aspect of our society. And I guess because we don't turn it into the downstream product here, we have to ship it out somewhere else, and then it comes back to us however it comes back.
Correct. So we only have one refinery left in the state of New Mexico. That's down south in Artesia. And it's HF Sinclair's refinery. We used to have more. And unfortunately, to your point, we do export a lot of our energy resources, whether it's oil and gas or renewables. We don't manufacture a lot of what we have here into resources that can stay in New Mexico. And as we move forward, not only with the current administration, but into our next administration, we're hopeful that we can find ways to further diversify the economy so we can keep so many of those resources here locally. Because right now, even though it's so cool that we're such incredible producers, that also means that we do incredible economic development for other states because we're shipping our energy to them.
Yeah. No, that's why some of the climate activists especially wish that instead of PNM being sold to an outside entity, somehow the state could invest in it or it could be purchased from within, because then they could decide instead of going where the profit is the biggest in terms of selling energy, it could stay right here. Or at least if we were selling it for profit, we would be keeping the profits.
Money always follows, much like water, money follows the path of least resistance. And
Yeah.
creating a regulatory climate and business climate here in New Mexico where we can keep as much of our energy and as much of our potential local, the better.
Yeah. Going back to the basic questions, just tell us a little bit about how you came to head such a really powerful independent consulting and lobbying and all those kinds of things group.
Sure. I am very proud of the work that I get to do. And I'm the most proud of that fact because I am a native New Mexican. My family has been here for at least 7 generations. And I'm actually from southeastern New Mexico in the Carlsbad area. I grew up in the heart of the Permian Basin on farms and ranches in the middle of the oil field. And because of my opportunities growing up in Carlsbad, I really saw what oil and gas has been able to give back to the community for so long. I did go to school at Texas Tech University, but I came back as quickly as I could. I always knew I'd end up back in New Mexico, and that's something I'm very proud of. Working at NMOGA, I'm grateful to work in oil and gas, but what I'm even more grateful for is to do this on behalf of New Mexico, knowing how much the industry brings to the state through tax dollars and other opportunities. But my entire career has been in community and government relations, and I think even inadvertently, every job I ever had was bringing me to this position. And I've been here for almost 3 years now at NMOGA, and I can't imagine being anywhere else. And I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Oh, that's a great story, because one of the things we do in our lives is we get somewhere, and it's not till we're there that we can look back and say, "I was meant to be here, and here's all the steps I took."
Absolutely. I am grateful for this role. I'm even more grateful for an incredibly supportive board of directors and a fantastic team. There are 10 of us that work here that work on regulatory, legislative, and education work, like I mentioned earlier. And
Mhm.
I'd like to think that we punch above our weight class because even though there's only 10 of us, I'm grateful for the work that we get to do on behalf of our membership. And as of yesterday, we actually surpassed 250 members at NMOGA, and this is actually one of the largest memberships that we've ever had. And we're grateful that companies across all different parts of the oil and gas industry are willing to put their resources into our association so that we can work so hard on their behalf.
All right. On that note, we'll take a quick break and be back in a moment with more Conversations Different.
We make renewable doable. We're positive energy solar for a cleaner, brighter future for all. Positive energy's the right call. Feel good about your energy bill. Help save the planet too. Your trusted solar company, working hard for you. Generate positive energy. Positive energy solar.
Welcome back to Conversations Different, where we're talking to Missi Currier of NMOGA. She is the CEO and president of the association. And obviously, everyone in New Mexico knows how huge oil and gas is for the budget. It's like a third, at least, of the general revenue fund, and it pays back in all sorts of other ways. Yet, people are very anxious about pollution, about waste left behind. When you guys feel like you're contributing so much, does it feel annoying to be viewed as like the evil boogeyman kind of? How do you deal with that?
It is difficult that people don't fully understand not only what we bring to the state, but also the environmental advancements that our companies are making every day.
Mhm.
Some of the greatest environmentalists I've ever known are actually folks that work in oil and gas. They hunt, they fish, they spend a lot of time in our beautiful natural lands, and they want that same experience that we were fortunate to grow up with for their kids and grandkids and so on and so forth. We have so much natural beauty in New Mexico that it should be protected. And that's one of NMOGA's role, is not only to tell New Mexicans why oil and gas continues to improve every day environmentally, but also to hold our member companies to an incredibly high standard. Uh, sure, mistakes can unfortunately happen, spills occur, other things like that. But industry is fully accountable for making sure that those are cleaned up. And while there are bad actors out there, it is our responsibility as an association and as New Mexicans to ensure that those bad actors clean up their act. And that is something that I am very proud of, to work for the oil and gas industry, to see how science forward and environmentally focused it is. If we were still drilling the way we were 50, 60, 70 years ago, I promise you I wouldn't be doing this job. But because things continue to improve and because we do things much more environmentally friendly now, that's a story that all New Mexicans should be incredibly proud of.
Do you think the bonding capacity for companies needs to go up so that it's not cheaper to walk away than to clean up a site after you're done? Or how do we balance those things?
We do think that there is a balance, and there might be ways that bonding capacity could go up at a reasonable level, but some of the capacity that is being suggested right now at different agencies is concerning, because it will really harm our smaller producers or producers that may not have very many wells in New Mexico. Companies should be held accountable, and companies should absolutely clean up their mess, but regulations shouldn't be set at a way that it hinders business moving forward. And there is a balance there, and we look forward to continuing to work with regulators to find that balance, but it shouldn't only be the big operators that can afford to work in New Mexico.
So is there a way to, maybe your bonding capacity depends on your size? Could they graduate it in a way as opposed to everybody pays the same kind of thing, or do they do that already?
That is so tiering is a way that we have talked about with the Oil Conservation Division for a while, to figure out if there's ways that we can figure out what could work for a really, really big guy, of course, may not work for that smaller guy. And everything is capital based. So if we can figure out a way to ensure that companies are still held accountable, but it's also based on size or number of wells being operated, a lot of different variables that could be considered, then that might create more of a balance. There is a false narrative out there that companies don't feel that they should be held accountable or that bonding isn't a good idea. We do not have one member company that doesn't agree that bonding is necessary. We know it's necessary. It's just a matter of finding a balance of keeping environmental standards high and keep business operating.
Okay. That seems like you can have some room to compromise and everybody work for the same goal if people will just listen and move along, kind of.
Agreed. And that's one of the things that we're hoping for. Right now, our regulatory environment in New Mexico has become increasingly difficult and even increasingly expensive, not only for oil and gas, but just all businesses. The way that rulemakings can be filed and the way the rulemaking process continuously works. And we are hopeful that the future administrations will look toward maybe regulatory changes that will make the business climate in New Mexico more equitable and not as expensive to go through rulemaking changes. Rulemakings are necessary and changes are necessary, but our process right now is incredibly burdensome.
Okay. So make it easier to make the rule, even if it's going to be a stiffer rule on the other side. Perhaps if it was fast, you wouldn't mind as much.
Exactly. Maybe the rulemaking itself, the hearing is very quick because maybe the regulators had stakeholders come to the table before we even get to the hearing.
Yeah.
Maybe there's changes that could be made to public comment. Public comment's necessary. I'm not suggesting that public comment by any means go away, but how can we better utilize public comment, and how do we better utilize and encourage transparency as well as compromise before we even get in front of the regulators? For example, we recently went through a hearing that lasted over 3 weeks. And then because it lasted so long, the regulators then suggested that maybe we go into negotiation sessions that lasted another couple months. Those negotiations were fruitful for all sides, but that is an incredibly expensive endeavor for all parties that have been in part of the rulemaking.
Okay, that makes sense. You talked about the next administration, and I read a story, and you might have been misquoted, so I don't know if this is accurate. So I'm going to ask, where you told people to tell their relatives in New Mexico to make sure that Sam Bregman won the primary because you didn't think a Republican could win, and that was the best shot for the oil industry. That didn't happen. So what's your position now going forward?
So that wasn't exactly my quote, but the quote was very much out of context.
Okay.
What I was saying in that setting was, if oil and gas folks don't vote, then you can't complain if you've got people that are voting against you or might be against the industry. And as you well know, and as you guys have seen, we have very low voter turnout right now, both in the Permian Basin and in the San Juan Basin.
Yeah.
So if oil and gas supporters, especially who live in the basin, feel that they are not being represented well, then they have to get to the polls. So what I was expressing was at that conference was, please tell your folks to go out and vote. And if you don't go vote, then you might end up with folks that you don't feel represent you well. And so while it was a quote taken very much out of context, it was a plea to get more people to the polls, knowing that San Juan Basin and Permian Basin just aren't getting there right now.
Okay. One of the things I remembered from the session was some fight over tax dollars or something. And there was a senator from southeastern New Mexico who was just irate about the fact that so many of the tax dollars that they're paying, and they're, giving up some quality of life because of big rigs and oil wells and all that kind of stuff, they're not getting their fair share. And I don't know if your association weighs in on things like that. But if you're from, let's say, Hobbs or Lovington, and your taxes or your work is, basically shoring up the budget, I can imagine people there feel pretty ticked off that they're not getting what they feel is their fair share. And how do you change that?
There has been a long-standing debate in New Mexico of, do the folks above I-40 listen to the folks below I-40? And one hill that I am fully willing to die on is that the green chili is better below I-40, but the red chili is better above I-40. But with that in mind, one of the things that we are really encouraging folks throughout all of southeastern New Mexico and the entire state is, like I mentioned before, folks just aren't getting out and voting. And finding a way to make your voice heard is something that we really want our company's employees to do, as well as folks that work in agriculture, construction, whatever it may be. If you don't feel in southern New Mexico that northern New Mexico is listening, find a way to make them listen. And one of the easiest ways to do that is at the polls. And I understand that if you don't feel listened to, then why do you bother? But finding ways to engage civically and finding ways to get to the poll and support candidates that support your way of life is one of the best ways to do it. And I really hope we see a strong voter turnout in November.
Yeah, there definitely is a difference. You can't say in terms of the governor's candidate, at least, that it's like voting for the same person. It's definitely a choice, whichever way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know that people in northern New Mexico think that Santa Fe listens to them either. So it's kind of a feeling, I think, rural. I think it's almost more rural versus urban anymore.
That is a great point. And, growing up in a very rural area of New Mexico and now living in a much more urban environment, it's definitely a mind shift. It's definitely something that takes some getting used to. And one thing that we have always pointed out to voters, especially in the San Juan and Permian Basin, is while we can't compete with Albuquerque voting numbers, obviously that's where the population base is, Carlsbad or Hobbs or Farmington can't compete with those numbers. But if Farmington, Hobbs, Carlsbad, Artesia, Loving, all of those regions join together, then those numbers can rival Albuquerque. But those numbers won't rival Albuquerque if they aren't getting to the polls. So it's a little bit of six one way, half a dozen the other, but we will continue to beat the drum that you have got to get to the polls to ensure that your voice can be heard.
Oh, that's true. And when you look at a rural town, because Taos is fairly rural, they have really good voter turnout and they vote very, very overwhelmingly blue. So if you want to counter that, then you're going to have to do the same thing wherever you live.
Absolutely. And I truly do not care who folks vote for as long as they're getting to the polls. That's incredibly important. And what we can all agree to vote on is ways to move New Mexico forward and candidates that support business friendly opportunities and a business climate that will continue to help New Mexico diversify, but not only diversify, but also retain our current business. We have really good business through the oil and gas industry that, as you mentioned earlier, funds so much in New Mexico. So we hope that while we can further diversify our economy, let's also ensure that we're retaining the businesses that are allowing so much opportunity for New Mexico.
Right. On that note, we'll take a quick break and be back in a moment with more Conversations Different.
This is Patrick Dorsey, publisher of the Santa Fe New Mexican. Looking to reach a wider audience and grow your business? For 175 years, the Santa Fe New Mexican has been the trusted voice of Santa Fe, with unmatched local reach in print and online. In addition to our long-standing, independent, family-owned newspaper, we have a full-fledged marketing team with the expertise to help you succeed in the 21st century. From traditional print to precision-targeted digital advertising, we have the tools to connect you with your ideal customers. Partner with us and see the results for yourself. Advertise with the Santa Fe New Mexican and unlock your business's full potential. Visit us at santafenewmexican.com/advertising or call us at 505-995-3852. Thank you.
We are back with Conversations Different, talking to Missi Currier about the New Mexico Oil and Gas Association. I wonder if you are as excited or as tired as I am of hearing the words produced water. Does that give you any reaction at all?
Yes, yes, I am tired of hearing the words produced water, but what I'm not tired of is the potential of what produced water can bring to our state. New Mexico's most precious resource is our fresh water. We all know that we live in an incredibly arid climate, and conserving our fresh water for generations to come is the utmost importance. And science shows us that produced water can be treated in ways to be used in appropriate processes, whether it's industrial, for example, for cooling, or even on non-edible crops like cotton. And following ways that we can best utilize the science and best utilize our resources is something that we're very supportive of. As we talked about earlier, oil and gas is an incredible resource and brings so much to the state. And the byproducts of oil and gas, like produced water, should also be utilized to its fullest ability, as well as ensuring that science is always something that we're placing first.
Yeah, I'm not sure the science is quite there yet. As much as I keep thinking about wearing cotton, irrigated with produced water, but the smart people will figure this out and we'll get there one of these days, because I know the research is moving it along very fast.
It is. And if you and your team ever have questions about how produced water is treated and what science is showing that it has the potential to do, we would love to put you guys with demonstrations to see the process that it goes through, to see what's in it at the beginning and how it's cleaned towards the end. We love to help show people the everyday uses of how treated produced water and other byproducts go from point A to point B, but would certainly love to help set that up for you if you ever have any questions about how it might work.
Oh, good. I'll tell Robin. She's always interested. She loves scientific things, so that would be interesting.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, we just got a letter from someone who's just mad at everybody because they're not using produced water. And since we usually get 10 letters against it, I was happy to see at least someone talking about a different perspective, because we try to have as many viewpoints as possible.
We appreciate the balanced approach and your willingness to show all sides of an issue.
Yeah. Thinking about transitions, going from not using produced water to perhaps using it. The other big transition that's happening is that, oil and gas is a finite resource. And a lot of people in the state don't think we're moving quickly enough to renewables. and are very worried about what happens to us when the money runs out. So how do you think we're doing in terms of that transition, and how could we do it better from your perspective?
So we will absolutely reach an energy transition one day. One day we will not utilize oil and gas to the extent that we do, and it's going to take a heck of a long time to get there. The reason that I say that is for a couple reasons. Number one, energy use only continues to increase as the global population grows, and because of that population becoming increasingly industrialized. So there will never be a time that we need less energy.
Yeah.
With that in mind, the renewable technologies are incredible technologies, but they still aren't to the place yet where we have battery storage or capacity to utilize wind or solar, hydro, other types of energies the way that we currently do with oil and gas. So until technologies catch up and until those technologies become more accessible and affordable, we will still need oil and gas to help fill that gap. So what we always talk about is an all of the above energy approach. All energies are great. It doesn't have to be an either or. And to reach an energy transition, we will first have to go through an energy and expansion. And with that energy expansion, that does mean that we'll continue to use oil and especially natural gas, which is the cleanest burning hydrocarbon and is very accessible and usually the cheapest hydrocarbon as well. So we will get to that transition. It will happen, but we first have to go through an energy expansion to achieve it.
So what I'm hearing you say is that New Mexico and other states obviously need to invest in the expansion and get that moving before they can completely transition.
Agreed. And New Mexico is so dominant in so many types of energies. And solar, for example, we're in the top 10. There is a ton of potential for geothermal. One of the things that New Mexico is incredibly blessed with is the opportunity for so many types of energies. You know, the sun shines all the time. The wind blows 370 days a year. We have options here. And if we can harness all of those types of energies to utilize them not only for our own beneficial uses, but also to help with other states' energy needs,
Yep.
then we will not only be an energy global power here at home, but on the world scale. New Mexico is truly in a unique position to do that. And that's why oil and gas works very closely often with renewables such as solar, such as geothermal, such as wind, knowing that all types of energies are needed.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody that's ever lived in southeastern New Mexico or even the northeastern too, because the winds are awful, knows what it's like to have the wind blow every day.
Every day. It's like a free facial.
Yep. It is. Yeah. Every time it gets dark in Santa Fe and it's windy, I always say, you know, it's bad, but you guys need to be in Lubbock on a spring afternoon. You just haven't lived it until you.
Oh, that is so true. Very, very true. We love to talk about geothermal, especially. You know, oil and gas is pretty good at digging holes. We've been digging wells for over a century, as I mentioned. And the only way we can do geothermal is to dig holes. So there are a lot of our oil and gas service companies that actually invest and work in geothermal because so many of the tools that are needed and the abilities of the workers themselves, it's very transferable between geothermal and oil and gas. And that's probably another misconception that people don't realize is how many folks that work in different types of energy have transferable skills that go amongst the different types of energies.
So it's not necessarily a competition. It's more of a kind of, it could become a support system and also a way because the jobs will transition to something else and you still get to keep, you know, good salaries and good benefits and those types of things.
Absolutely. Industries will continue to evolve. Opportunities will continue to be there for workers. But oil and gas will be here for a long time. Solar will be here for a long time. Wind will be here for a long time. The more energies that we have, the more potential that we have to create affordable, reliable, and sustainable energy options for New Mexicans and beyond. And the more affordable, reliable, and sustainable energy options that we have, that is much easier and better for the consumer's pocketbooks.
Yeah, that's right. I'm waiting to have gas made from algae.
Yeah,
that was
absolutely.
Those biofuels, those are something, and they have a superfood, spirulina, and some other little tiny ones that are so good for you that we could maybe make them potato chips have them in them and not taste them, and we'd all get healthier.
that would be fantastic. And
Yeah.
not for the eating side, of course, but that is another potential on the algae side where treated produced water could maybe even be utilized. So we're not using fresh water to utilize those algae. So there's lots of applications that all the energies can continue to work together for cooling, industrial, whatever it might be.
Okay. What is the one thing you would like people to know about the oil and gas industry that maybe they don't think about enough?
I don't think people realize how much the oil and gas industry is a part of their everyday life. Even if you drive a solar vehicle, an electric vehicle, for example, a lot of your vehicle was made from oil and gas byproducts. Wind turbines that you see or solar panels that you see, those were made with oil and gas byproducts. So even if you don't live in the San Juan or Permian Basin, even if you don't drive a gas-powered car, even if your home isn't heated or cooled with natural gas products, you are still very much a consumer of oil and gas products because of the medicine that you might be taking, of the car that you might be driving, the makeup that you might be wearing, even the clothes you have on. And so even if you don't feel that you have a direct connection with the industry, oil and gas not only touches all of our everyday lives, but even improves our everyday lives. And I'm hopeful that people come to understand that industry is striving to be better every day to make people's lives better every single day. And that's something I'm incredibly proud of.
On that note, this has been another Conversations Different. We'll be back next week. Thank you for listening to Conversations Different, hosted by me, Inez Russell Gomez, editorial page editor for the Santa Fe New Mexican. Our weekly episodes would not be possible without your support. We hope you enjoy them and keep listening. New episodes drop every Tuesday. Consider signing up for our newsletter so you never miss an episode, and while you're at it, consider subscribing to the Santa Fe New Mexican. Our podcast is available by visiting our website, santafenewmexican.com/podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Conversations Different with Inez Russell Gomez is produced by Matt Dalside and Ernesto Cisneros, published by the Santa Fe New Mexican, a local and independent newspaper owned by Robin Martin.